In this video, we will discuss how to find the equilibrium in a country before trade, and then what happens to the consumption and production structures when trade is introduced. Specifically, we will see how the producers adjust their production in response to new international prices, and how consumers also adjust their consumption in response to the new international prices. And in the process, we will be able to understand the exports and imports and the trade triangle that this country now experiences as a result of the trade. Before we get into the specific question, I need to point out here that it is imperative that we understand the three ratios that we have discussed in the previous video and also in the class. Specifically, the relative price ratio, the slope of the PPF, and the slope of the indifference curve. Just to briefly summarize them here, the price ratio tells us the price of the good on the x-axis in terms of the good on the y-axis. The slope of the PPF tells us the opportunity cost of producing an additional unit of the good on the x-axis in terms of giving up the good on the y-axis. So this is the cost that the producers confront when they are deciding to change the product mix, when they're deciding to produce more or less of X. How much of the Y do they have to give up, or will they gain, is given by the slope of the PPF. Finally, the slope of the indifference curve gives us the ratio of the marginal utilities of X and Y, or the good on the x-axis and the good on the y-axis in consumer's mind. In other words, it tells us the trade-off a consumer is willing to make between y and x. So if we give them an additional unit of x to keep them on the same indifference curve, we have to take away y. The slope of the indifference curve tells us how much y they're willing to part with to get an additional x. And the more x they get, the less they're willing to give up of y. So they start valuing x, relatively speaking, less than they value y, because they have a lot of x but very little y. So now with this understanding of what the slopes are or ratios are, let's get back to the question. The question gives us the relative price of pasta in terms of togas as 40 over P. What does that mean? If we look at the ratio given to us, this implies that the value of one pasta equals 4 togas. So this is telling us that the relative price of pasta in terms of toga, or PP over PT, is 4. The meaning of this is that you need to pay 4 togas to get one pasta. And there was a lot of confusion about, we write PP over PT as 4, and some students were mistakenly thinking that you have to have 4 pastas for one toga. Now, what this tells us is how much are we paying for our good in the numerator in terms of our good in the denominator. So this is like the example that we've been talking about in class. So let's say you're paying somebody in terms of the Wendy's dollar menu, let's say Junior Frosties. How many Frosties would you need to pay for one pasta? In this case, we'd say 4. So the way to look at this ratio is how much of the good in the denominator do you have to pay? This becomes the currency, so to speak, or the numerator good, to get 1 unit of the good in the numerator. So the ratio 4 means that I have to pay 4 togas to get 1 pasta. So from a production perspective, this is the opportunity cost of one pasta at the place where this country is operating.